second edition of the Professors versus Students debate. All of you, give it up for the professors. I see that we have a lot of support for them. The second one is for the students. No booze, please, no booze. Just either just shout for them or just clap a bit. Because that's encouraging. Okay, so firstly, we would like to introduce our club a bit so that you know what we do and who we are actually, because a lot of you are first timers around here and you don't know what we do. So we are the Campus Brussels Debate Club. What we do is we organize debates, we encourage free speech, we encourage that people do get the chance to speak whatever they want to do and however they want to do, and in a respectful way, respecting and hearing what the others have to say and seeing what arguments can be built up, remaining in a framework of a motion. So whenever there's a topic, the delegates or the participants get a chance to prepare around that motion and to present themselves in a very charismatic way and in a very organizational way. And that appeals to the public a lot. Moving on, this is what we do. So we have a few board members, and you can see the names on the board. So firstly, I'll introduce to our president, the one who's been the backbone of our society throughout this year, who's been responsible for formulating motions. So the motion you see, she has a big role to play in that, and she's been the mastermind behind doing all those stuff and organizing a lot of events. So give it up for Monica Heng.
Thank you, everyone. I think Alham gives me way too much credit because I always say we work together as a team. So the whole plan, the mastermind, the true mastermind, is actually our team. So without further ado, I'd like to actually introduce our two vice presidents. We have Alham and Timon here. So big warm welcome to them.
Because now we have some young members. We're all young as well, but these are some first years and second year students. No, I think we don't have second year that much, but we do have first year students, and we do have a few cute, innocent people as well within us, and a wise guy as well. So let's start with introducing to you first. She's one of the participants as well in today's debate. She is Jana Bolkar. And moving on, we have the next one. She is young, she's doing BBE, and she is as much energetic as you can see her to be around. She's been doing all your attendance and your registrations around. She is Alika. And then we have the one who stays silent a bit sometimes, but she's smart. She's actually very smart. And she's sitting behind, still saying nothing, but she is Maria Uruzova, and she's got tremendous experience as well. Where's our naughty kid? Oh, the naughty kid. So I call him the naughty kid on the class because he's always the one who's having fun around within our meeting. Whenever we have a team building activity, I call him the naughty kid because he's just teasing Monica around and just teasing everybody around and doing some fun activities, which just keeps us lively around. So he is Bella as our administrative assistant. So that's why we've given him this responsibility. And we do have one, but he's not here. He's the wise person. We're going on membership training as well for the trip, and he's the one who's planned everything. He's the one who's responsible for booking and stuff. So he's not here currently, but he comes in. I introduce him or I give him a shout out. So he's Sufyan. And there is one special guy, the technical mind of our society, who's sitting behind this crate for me. I cannot see his face, but he is the ever energetic, the most lively person in our club, the one who's hopping around places to do and make things happen around for us. And he's also done the life training possible for us. Otherwise, we were not able to manage that. So he is Dario Gordy. now we move forward to what's in it for you. So I will give it to Timon to just describe it and we move forward.
Free speech is under attack. We need to protect it at all costs. And that's where you take part in coming to our events, educating yourself, thinking, negotiating, debating. It improves your negotiating skills, your critical thinking skills. That's what we need in today's society, where a lot of people are brainwashed by mass media and following just the lies of propaganda and today's world. So
propaganda is a very important word for today. Keep that in mind.
So what do we have? We have negotiations, we have debates, we have roundtable events where we just get together and talk about different topics. We also have, we do collaborations with other clubs. For Music on Campus, we recently had a karaoke event. We're going to have an event with MUN, a negotiation about today's situation on war in Ukraine and Russia, but we'll announce that a bit later. We have also some city trips. We went to the beach last year. Now we're going to a forest.
We are going to a city which is towards the border of France, and Debate Club is partially sponsoring the members to go there. The ones who are our persistent members and are regular show up to our events regularly. We take them and we give them a small treat like this, and we just make them feel, and we just allow them to go there and practice what they have to say, and we just give everybody a chance to speak what they have to say and enjoy as well. Because we're not here to make sure that you just bundle up everything in your mind and just get exhausted. We want you to relax and have fun. And this is what we are here for as well.
What's the goal of our club? So we want to go to as many competitions as possible worldwide, because there is no debate culture in Belgium. So we're creating this in Brussels City. We're getting all our clubs together. We have some representatives of other clubs, of other debating clubs here today. So let's see.
These are some pictures. We didn't stop even when COVID was there, because we did them online, and we still had some decent participation around. And then those are pictures from the beach where we had a lot of fun. That's the presidential debate we streamed, and we showed how those two debated. And then this is another presidential debate. That was in München, in the theater in München, and that was in the classroom.
The first one, this is the second one. Yeah. We rented the whole movie theater just to watch a debate. So if you would like to sign up and become a member, here you have a QR code. We'll come back to it on the screen later.
Yeah, we come back to the our details. Okay, so now is the time when we introduce and present you the students team first, and then we present the professors team after that. So hold your horses a bit and wait for Timon introducing the students team.
So on the students team, we have Rosh Ali from Pakistan, BB1. She also lives in Indonesia, and her favorite color is pink. Then we have Mohammed Rizki from BBA. He's from Indonesia, but he also lives in Montenegro, and his favorite animal is a whale. Next we have Aurora Ines Titova, BBE. The time she can hold a handstand is longer than her attention span.
She can have a longer handstand than she can see her maths lecture or her physics lecture or any other lecture. She can do a handstand longer than that. So just give it up from there.
And last but not least, Jana Belka, BBA 1 from Jordan. She's originally Circassian and she is trypophobic.
Okay, so that was... Yeah, she's afraid of small holes. I don't know why, but... Okay, so yes. Okay, so firstly, now we are going to introduce the professors. The first professor we have is, I think he's known to majority of you because if you're BBA student, because you've been studying with him a maths course, which you should like, but you don't like. I know that. So I'll tell you about his credentials before you people say that, oh, he cannot teach math, or there's a lot of allegations on him outside of his classroom. So let's hear them, because he has done PhD in mathematics. So that's actually a very big feat which he has already achieved. And secondly, he is very good at logical reasoning. So if you see a lot of good arguments and a lot of good critical thinking and critical assessment from him, don't be surprised, because he's going to be giving students a very tough time, and he's going to be making sure that that side is a heavier one. So give it up for Professor Eric. So next up, the one who is in second year BBA, he is a macroeconomic professor. He teaches that course, which is a 6th grade course, quite essential one and quite knowledgeable course. He has done his PhD as well from 10th University in economics. So he knows how to make policies, he knows how to align a team, how to link chains, how to link with links within a chain, and he knows how to raise questions. So, and he is also one more thing for BBA students. He is the program director. So if you fail by 8 or 9, or you are not graduating, maybe you can go to him. That's my advice. So he is the one and only Professor Tom Warbeck. And now comes in. She is not a designated professor, but she is quite essential for the third year students, especially for me, because she is my coach, career development coach in one of my courses in third year, and she is the study counselor. So if you have more than 50% of your courses left and you have to switch, or you don't know what to do, and a lot of us have those kind of questions, and the only person we can go to and we can spit everything out is not actually spit everything, I would say everything out, is to none other than Madam Krista Van Winkle. While she comes up over here, I just tell you one thing. She's quite fluent in English because she's done her MBA from US, from Iowa State University, and she is quite good at developing strategies. So if you believe that the debate is a bit strategic and the opposition is not getting the things they want to say because they've been trapped into a plot, then maybe she's the mastermind behind that. So just keep that in fact as well. And then lastly, favorite for all of you, I'll just introduce, because a lot of you like him for his humor, I presume. Oh my God, this is a great qualification. I stole it. Because the qualifications, if I got the chance to steal them, I would have stolen them. So just hear them out first. So he is a teacher of philosophy, which all the first year students have. I personally like that course to an extent, but yeah, that was a good course. So that was a good course, but I like the energy with which that course was taught, although it turned online quickly because of COVID, so I didn't got the chance to see him doing what he does during the lectures, that energy that he brings in, and the way he gets the students involved during the lecture. He's done his MA, History, Philosophy, Theology from the University of Cambridge. So just keep that intact. And he can add humor into almost anything. So if there's something intense going on and he adds humor into that, so that can happen anytime. So anything humor involved in this debate is from Professor Mark Corner. Okay, so now the time for which the professors and the student team has been waiting for. The motion has now we have to release the motion, and then they get 15 minutes to prepare it. They don't know what the motion has been so far. They just going to prepare 15 minutes beforehand. So Monica is now going to tell us everything from now on.
So, what is the mysterious surprise motion? We will now uncover it for you.
In 3,
2,
1.
So, this house supports the unlimited use of wartime propaganda, which aims to dehumanize the enemy. So, today the professors will be on the government side, which means they will be going for this statement, and the students will be going for the opposition side today. So I suggest all the participants quickly write down the motion one time. THS again stands for This House Supports. And then, yes, government means basically that the professors will be for the motion, so they have a proposition. And students who have opposition are against this motion, okay? So they will be debating for two sides of the coin, really. So now we invite the professors and the students to go take their places at the prep stations, and they have 15 minutes on the clock to prepare their speeches.
And then we get the chance to introduce you to the judges as well.
That's right.
So we have a special judge between us, which I have waited for. Just a bit of attention I may require for this moment. So we have the president of the Leuven Debating Society within us, who's going to be judging this debate. She's not going to be judging professors that much, but she's going to be providing her feedback on what she felt and how the debate was. So she is the president of the Leuven Debating Society. She is Ina Leuven.
As for the other two judges on the judging panel, it will be the Vice President Imon and myself.
Dude! Sorry. I need to go. Fine. You can pass, but don't stop in front of it. I mean, they can sit there.
We'll be back in 13 minutes, so please get yourself something to drink from outside or just mingle around, network around. And the timer, as soon as the timer gets up, the professors are going to be back on the stage with the students.
I want to be on the right. How are you watching?
introduction done, you know?
You forgot me. Then you...
No, I actually thought the name, but then I realized, like, last minute, no, I missed it. We have 8 people. And then I saw you because I couldn't see you behind the crate. You were all in it like this. Then I said I couldn't see Daryl, and then I said, oh, Daryl.
But I love the introduction though.
Yeah, you like it? Because I have that prepared for you. The technical, you're the technical.
I don't want to be the tech guy.
Next time, if I get the chance to use, I don't know when it's going to be. I said you're the more energized team. You're actually the most energized one.
Yeah, I do, but we had 10 people.
How many motions will there be?
1.
Okay.
अभी मैंने साउथ एशियन बोला, मैं आपको देख रहा हूँ, मुझे नजर ही नहीं आई बीच में। नहीं, मैं वैसे सबको देख रहा था, वो पब्लिक मैंने साउथ एशियन मेरे मुंह में कहा, नजर ही नहीं आया मुझे। मैंने बोला था, मैंने सारी साइकिल के नाम लिए।
ये आपके लिए मतलब बता नहीं सकता। मैं तो आया था, आने का प्लान बना, क्लोज के कुछ ऐसे ही कुछ नहीं था।
ये कहेगा ना, देखना जरा
My bad.
It's fine, it's fine.
The mic is working, right?
No one's watching right now. People will join in. How many spectators do you have?
Really? Wait, I'm gonna check my hair by watching the live stream.
1 minute left.
Okay, but can you move? Watch it. Come on, this is gonna be on YouTube and everything.
Oh no, it's not working for me. Oh, that's me.
Good luck, man.
Thank you. Sorry to bother you. Good luck.
And the preparation time has officially finished. We wait a few seconds for everyone to take their seats. And we welcome both teams to the podium. The student team has 2 more minutes to prepare.
Everyone, if I can get your attention, we're slowly going to start again. Everyone, please take your seats. Thank you. Everyone, can I please get your attention? Okay, so we're going to start very soon, so I will repeat for you the motion one more time so it's very clear, and then I give you a small disclaimer as well. So this House supports the unlimited use of wartime propaganda, which aims to dehumanize the enemy. The professor team will be going for government. This means they agree with the motion. This means they do support the unlimited use of wartime propaganda, which aims to dehumanize the enemy. The student team is the opposition, which means they do not agree with this statement. And that's what they will be debating on. As for the disclaimer, I just quickly want to say, debate is for the sportsmanship and for the fun of debate. All the opinions expressed during the debate do not necessarily represent the professor's opinions or the students' opinions. So just remember that they debate for the sake of the side that they are on, and just for the sport of the debate itself does not represent their true opinions, okay? So yeah, we just let you know to take that into account. And now, if the students and the professors are ready, Simon, are the students ready? Okay, see if the participants are ready. Can you please give them a warm welcome?
So now give it up for the Professor Steve, please.
The judges will now take their seat and our debate is going to begin. I will have our announcer, Alhant, start for the moderation of the debate, and he will also be keeping time.
So I'll just let you know what the positions are and how the procedure is going to carry forward. So sitting from So this is the format in which we're going to be debating. So the first speaker, as we had, is on that side, like the government speaker. He is Professor Tom. He's going to be the Prime Minister in this debate. Then opposite on that side is Rizky. He's going to be the Leader of Opposition. Then comes Professor Eric. He's going to be the Deputy Prime Minister. Then the Deputy Leader of Opposition is Roche. Then comes up Professor Mark Corner as the Government Whip. And then comes up Opposition Whip, who is Jana. Then comes up the last Madam Krista. She is the reply speaker. And then comes up Aurora, who is the opposition reply speaker. And for the first three speakers, from the Prime Minister to the Whip, they have 7.5 minutes. The first minute and the last minute of their speeches are protected. They cannot ask a POI. I'll be tapping on the desk. Maybe you can't hear me. Or maybe I'll be tapping on the mic. Yeah, twice. So that they know that the first minute is over. The timer is all going to be over on the screen as well, so that they have a better knowledge of what the time is and how much time they have left. And to give them an indication about the first and the last minute the taps are going to be done. So this is going to be the procedure, and the motion is already clear to them, and they're prepared as well for this for 15-16 minutes now. So if everybody is ready, we should let the debate begin. Just before we start, just give it up for them so that they have their morale. I'll tap at the end of first minute on the mic. And when the last minute starts, before the last minute starts, it's annoying, but I can't do anything else. So the first speaker, if the first speaker is ready, Professor Tom, are you ready? Yep. Can you check your microphone if it's working? So you can either stand or you can sit, whichever way it's comfortable for you to speak.
I'll sit because if I'm gonna move, I'll end up in hospital, I guess. Roll bags and
I won't challenge that, to be honest. Okay, so he'll be sitting and he'll be starting his speech. So you are on the clock from now.
Okay, so the House supports the use of unlimited wartime propaganda to dehumanize the enemy. Now, first of all, obviously we are not in favor of dehumanizing anyone. Not in wartime, not in peacetime. But this question is not about dehumanizing in wartime or in peacetime. This question is about the freedom of speech. What can you say and what can't you say? It's about the freedom of speech, and then the problem is, okay, what is the alternative? Think about a world where you can't express your opinion, because somebody would be able to say, look, this is unlimited use of your freedom of speech, and you use propaganda, and you use propaganda to dehumanize me because you feel I'm the enemy. That's the alternative, right? Somebody can claim, somebody has to regulate it. And if you think about regulating freedom of speech, okay, then somebody has to define what is propaganda. I know propaganda is telling half-truths, telling lies, using spurious correlation to make your argument. Blank out lies, right? But what is a lie? When is somebody telling a half-truth? A half-truth, by definition, is half-true. So who determines if something is half-true? Who determines if something is a lie? Who determines if something is spurious correlation or if something is real correlation, causation? It's about freedom of speech, so somebody has to determine, so freedom of speech in wartime, somebody has to determine wartime. When? When are you at war? And who decides that you are at war, the enemy or you? Right? Second, in a democracy, well, we have alternatives to make sure that people are aware of the fact that you have propaganda. You have journalists, the free press. So instead of regulating the unlimited use of free speech, we might make sure that journalists can express their opinion, that you have a free press, that you have journalists who are able and capable of imposing, writing that somebody told a half-truth, that somebody was dehumanizing, etc. And even if you don't have a free press, even if you don't believe the so-called mainstream media, the MSM, you have social media, and you can't black out social media. I mean, Elon Musk has satellites, right? And if any country wants to black out social media, Elon Musk sends a couple of satellites, sends some equipment, and social media works. You can use social media to cross the truth from one side into the other. So if you feel that somebody uses propaganda, well, social media can be used to diffuse that, to identify the lie. Yes?
Don't you think that the social media platforms are also controlled by propaganda and by certain people of power that control the narrative of the media?
Then you only have one solution. Make sure you have a lot of social media. You have Twitter, you have Facebook, you have blogs, you have LinkedIn. You can write down whatever opinion that you like on any blog, as long as you can spread the news through any channel. I mean, that would be sufficient, right? You only need sufficient access. So we have social media. Okay, you can say, even if you feel dehumanized, you can go to court. Right? You can go to court. You just take a lawyer, a good lawyer, you go to court, and you say to the judge, look, he was dehumanizing me. Right? I want compensation for that. And maybe you have compensation. So basically you use the responsibility of those who you feel are dehumanizing you, well, to take them to court and to make sure that they stop dehumanizing you, or that they actually withdraw their message. Right? And yes.
What about governments that do not recognize international law? What is the solution then?
Okay, that was my last point I was going to make. In a democracy you have journalists, you have social media, you have free press. Those protect the freedom of speech. Because like I said, the alternative is that you regulate free speech. And in those countries who do not recognize international human rights, who do not recognize international public law, then you're in an autocracy, then you're in a dictatorship. Right? Do you really want a dictator to determine what propaganda is, what wartime is, and who's the enemy? I don't think you want to do that. So even in a dictatorship, I mean, the thing that you have to do in a dictatorship is try to get the message across through social media, through journalists, internet, etc. Right? You won't be able to. Yes.
You previously mentioned that you guys are against dehumanizing people, but you still support wartime propaganda. Don't you think that propaganda will always cause a certain minority or a certain group of people to be dehumanized? That is inevitable.
Yes, but the question, and we are against dehumanizing, but the alternative is that you regulate free speech. And if you regulate free speech, you have to decide who's dehumanizing, what is propaganda, what is a lie, what is a half-truth, what is a spurious correlation. Somebody has to decide on those facts, right? So, if you want to regulate free speech, somebody has to tell you when can you say something, to whom, at which moment in time. When is it war? When do you dehumanize? When is the message propaganda and not a fact? That's what you have to do. That's your alternative. I use my time.
Thank you so much. Round of applause for Professor Tom for that speech. That was quite elaborated of a speech. And when the last minute starts, I'm going to tell you again, okay? So if you're ready, I'm going to put you on clock.
Can you all hear me now? Right, okay. Okay, so good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it really is an honor to be here on behalf of students to talk about an issue that is of particular importance and relevance to our university's life, namely about the use of propaganda and its implications on our society. In addition, I would like to also extend my gratitude to fellow professors who have given up their Thursday afternoon, evening, to come here with such humility and civility and to engage with everybody in this debate. So I think we deserve another round of applause for that. And this really also highlights that sort of epitomizes how excellently we conduct democracy in our university. And I want to thank Professor Tom Verbank for eloquently articulating the danger of dehumanizing people, or indeed anyone in a war, as it goes in line with an argument. But I'm afraid some of his arguments that he set out are a bit off topic, so I'm going to try to take this debate onto the right path. And as the leader of the opposition, we would not support unlimited use of wartime propaganda, which aims to dehumanize enemy. And this is of two fundamental reasons. First of all, because propaganda is inherently biased, and secondly, because generalization based on propaganda is morally wrong. And my colleagues on my side of the argument will elaborate on some of the arguments that I will mention in the following moments. But before I delve deeper into my argument, I think it falls upon my responsibility to define some of the terms that we are using in this debate, since Professor Tom Verbank has failed to do so, I think. First of all, propaganda can be defined quite rightly as the deliberate and disseminated information intended to sway, disinform, and misinform the people. So it really is a negative, a morally wrong way to spread information. Another thing that we need to define is dehumanizing, which can be defined as depersonifying humans, denying the basic rights of the people, denying the lives and the rights of the people. Another thing that needs to be defined, and is of crucial importance, particularly because of the nature of the debate, is the word enemy. Because in the context of war, enemy oftentimes, and I can say always, include civilians, innocent people who are not actually supporting the war that is declared by the government. And that is true as we are seeing the Russian and Ukrainian war, for example. A lot of Russian people are against the war, even though Putin and his government is declaring to do so. But I want to go back to my first argument, which is that propaganda is inherently biased because it shows only one side of the government. It doesn't allow us to see the truth, what is happening in the real world. And there was an interesting article from the Wall Street Journal, if I'm not mistaken, which says that the first victim of a war is not actually mothers or fathers, but it's actually truth. And this is exactly a consequence, the major consequence of propaganda itself. And what propaganda tries to do is that it distorts our view of the world. And this is very much true in the world. And let's take a look at a few examples of the history. I can talk about, for example, the demonization of the Japanese people in America during the Second World War. We can argue quite rightly that the propaganda that America was perpetuating was well-intentioned. It was designed to defeat the Japanese imperial forces. But the implication that it had on the Japanese American people who didn't have any connection whatsoever with the war itself was quite significant. A lot of Japanese people, Asian people too, were sent to internment camps where they were educated, whatever that means. So yeah, and I want to go to my next argument, which is that generalization that is based on propaganda is always wrong, and it can't even be justified from a moral perspective. And let's take a look at the harm that propaganda has done to the general public, because we need to understand, as I have said previously, the nature of the war. Because there's oftentimes no such thing as right or wrong in war, and as I think there's a phrase in the English language which perfectly describes the nature of the war, which is that one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist, and that history is oftentimes written by the victors. It would have been one thing to spread propaganda, but for us to dehumanize, to deny the basic rights of the people, of people who are oftentimes not even in support of the war, is a very serious matter. And the example of the Japanese American people have quite support the argument. And it goes with another argument that we decided, which is that it is so unethical to generalize people. How can you blame a whole population for something that is done by a tiny majority, a tiny minority of the people? What about conformity of fact debated? If you can blame soldiers, and what about the people? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a good speech and right in time. So we've had good competition so far. So next speaker we have on the government side, the Deputy Prime Minister, who is going to be Professor Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, well, if you're ready, I will start the timer and put you on the clock for 7.5 minutes. The procedure stays the same. This time the tap is going to be done by Professor Mark's son twice, and at the end as well. So just keep that intact. So here we have it now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, once again. So, I'm afraid that my opposition seems to misinterpret what we have said. When we say we were against dehumanization, of course, what we're trying to make the point here is that what's the alternative to the unlimited use of wartime propaganda? What's the alternative? You need to regulate, right? You need to regulate. Who is going to do that? That's my first question. Who is going to regulate what is wartime, what is propaganda, what is unlimited use, what's unlimited? Should we put some limit on propaganda? Should there be a lower limit on propaganda that's acceptable or that's not acceptable? And this problem is not so much about the dehumanization as such, because I think every sensible human being will be against that. The problem here is that you might think, okay, how can we avoid that? Thing is, the world will not listen. People who need propaganda will be using propaganda. I'm the first to subscribe to the notion that the first victim in a war is truth. But truth has many killers in the war. It has killers on the one side, and it has killers on the other side. We hear the stories from Putin, and Putin's the bad guy right now. So everybody is against Putin. So everything that Zelensky said, he's a good guy, is correct. At least we know that there's propaganda on both sides. We know that there's propaganda on Zelensky's side. We know there's propaganda on Putin's side. Why are we against Putin? Because we don't like Putin. We like Zelensky now. We didn't like him before. We like him now. So the thing is, you might want to regulate it, but there is no human regulator, or no international regulator to do that. So you'd better be aware of the fact that propaganda will be used in wartime, certainly, but also outside of wartime, right? Propaganda is everywhere. I don't think we should be careful about restricting, regulating it, because there is no regulatory body to do that. What can we do? We can strengthen our population to detect propaganda. We could look for journalists who do fact-checking, who try to go to war zones, who report. And even then, we all remember the Iraq War. Well, maybe you don't, the Iraq War. when there was embedded journalism. You know what embedded journalism is? Journalists were allowed to accompany the troops, so they could report faithfully. Yeah, right. Okay, that's a main point. Our main point is not so much about is it allowed, is propaganda allowed, but everybody would want to get rid of propaganda. I think everybody on this side of the house also thinks so. I think we're all on the same page there. The thing is, how can you regulate it? There is no way to regulate it. So there's only a way to strengthen ourselves, our population, to deal with the propaganda. Please.
I think there's actually a way to regulate that, and a number of countries in Europe in particular have already introduced laws to ban anti-Semitic propaganda, for example. And would you be in favor of such laws in Belgium, for example?
Well, if you look at propaganda and taking back to my colleagues, the free speech thing, there was a conviction some few months ago, or maybe a year ago by now, of some right-wing protesters who carried banners who were against Islam, basically, or anti-Islam. They were convicted. They were convicted using laws on the books, which were widely interpreted by the courts. And even left-wingers, so the bloody, the bloody hard liberals, as they called, many of them were against this conviction because it stretches some of the laws by so far that it becomes dangerous for everyone in a certain sense. So that's the danger. How do you regulate all of this? And I don't think that we could regulate the use of propaganda, let it be in wartime or in peacetime. What's unlimited use? Again, put a limit. Okay, I want to hear your proposal of a limited propaganda that will be acceptable in wartime or in peacetime, please.
I think we can all agree that propaganda in the heat of the moment is of great service, but what about the consequences in the future? What about what future generation will say? What if they define a limit and we have crossed the line? Is it still right? Is it because it is right now that it will also be like this in the future?
15 seconds, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's a hypothetical question, right? What if in the future something happens? And that's the type of questions that I will let future people decide upon. When situations change, you change your mind, you change your opinion, you change your arguments. What we can talk about is the current situation. And that's all we can talk about. All the rest is hypothesis. And as a mathematician, I like hypotheses if you can test them. If you cannot test them, then it's like, what's that? Worüber man nicht sprechen kann, darüber muss man schweigen. And that doesn't mean you have to keep silent, but if there's nothing sensible to be said, then you better keep quiet. Yes.
You previously mentioned how you think both sides of a certain conflict or a certain war are going to be spreading their own propaganda. But don't you think that there are certain parties, when considering a specific war, that don't have the power to do so? They don't have like a hold on the media to actually spread their side of the story. So in that case, it's going to be completely biased.
Of course, in terms of propaganda, it's the powerful who are in charge, right? If you have a powerful media concern at your back, if you have the backing of social media or your what's it called again? What's the word in English? Okay, I got other words. Your support mechanism. But that's why I say we have to develop the capacity of the people to detect propaganda, not go along with it. Unfortunately, people are lazy, so people oftentimes do not want to make the effort to do that. And that's more of a problem than the actual propaganda itself, I think.
Thank you so much, right on time. That was a good speech. Wait, I have to set the time. Okay. now we have the deputy leader of opposition. The terrace is nice. If you go out, let us know how was the view. Okay. So now we have the deputy leader of opposition, Rosh, who's going to be taking the floor for 7.5 minutes. I hope you have pink essence in your speech. Okay. Yeah. Let me know when you're ready.
Are you ready?
Wait, who said that? No, it's my turn. Okay. Yeah, okay. 3, 2, 1. Good evening to everyone here. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to the professors for being here. I would like to start off by elaborating on some of the stuff which my teammate said at the beginning of his speech, and after that I would like to take some time to rebut some of the points raised by the government side. So our first point was the fact that propaganda is inherently biased, but just by definition. Propaganda implies that it is not the full truth, as Professor said, half truth, half lie, but in times of war, that half lie can have very detrimental effects. As the second point that we had was the generalization. Propaganda also generalizes a whole population, and we believe this is inherently wrong, whether it be on the framework of logic, ethics. In every way we feel this is wrong because it ends up dehumanizing a certain population, whether or not that was the intention. In the case of propaganda being inherently biased, let's take the example of the media. When we talk about news media, we proactively want to not see a bias. For example, we know that Fox News was infamous for their support of Donald Trump, and the same was done by the opposite side by CNN. This is a very oversimplified example, but my point to bring that up is to demonstrate that we were proactively criticizing this. We were saying this is wrong to do. We want coverage, fair, unbiased coverage, which neither side was providing, and many organizations are at fault of this. But as a society, we've taken the stance that we stand against this. We like to call this out. As was stated, that we need to have the society who is standing there ready to watch out for it and to debunk it, whether it be through social media or whatnot. I totally agree with that point brought up by the government. My issue with that is when you declare it with propaganda, it's just a glorification of this thing that we already criticize as a society. Why would we ever be in favor of it when we already don't support it? It's like regressing backwards. It's simply illogical, this position taken that it's just going backwards, because we have concluded that this is not a productive thought process. Secondarily, in terms of the harm that propaganda causes, go on please.
You say that Fox News did on the one. You say Fox News said X, CNN said Y. So CNN broke the propaganda of Fox, Fox broke the propaganda of CNN. Doesn't that show that media works?
To that I would like to say, again, as I said, that was an oversimplified example. My point with that is not to say which side is right and which side is wrong, whether CNN is debunking Fox or whether Fox is debunking. I'm saying as a society we say that neither side should take this action because both sides are not spreading the whole truth. And the fact is, in real life, some people are going to go to Fox and they're going to go over to Fox and follow everything Fox is, and the impact of that is some people are going to become diehard fans of CNN, and you don't have productive discussions happening anymore. Go on.
Just a simple question. What is the truth?
What is the truth? We have very good thought out ways after many years of whether it's science, public discussion. We know what the truth is. We have many strategies of figuring out what the truth is. In fact, that was one of the things that I wanted to address because it was said. Some of the ways that we can determine truth. Truth can be determined, again, through honest and open journalism, to which you would say, what is fair journalism? Yes. But to that, I would say that the spreading of propaganda is, again, just an over-glorification of the thing that we already accuse news corporations of doing and which we debunk. Aside from that, we have our brains, our, let's say, God-given brains, which provide us rationality. We know logic, we know truth, we have science, we have the scientific method. On top of everything, most importantly, we have our humanity, which I feel is the key of this issue, because we are dealing with the issue of war, and what happens with war, lives are taken in war. This is not the debate of is Justin Timberlake better or is Justin Bieber? No, we're talking about Putin having blood on his hands. You also pointed out, oh, Putin, what makes Putin bad? What makes Putin bad is the effect of his words, which is the loss of life, which is the millions and millions of people displaced. There is very real tangible things that we can point to say this is why Putin is bad. It's not just me saying, oh, Putin doesn't like pancakes, I like pancakes, he says waffles. No, this is very real. These are cities being destroyed, these are people being killed. This is very tangible, and to me, that's the truth, and I hope to the audience that is also the truth. So that would be my response to that. On top of that, I would like to add, who decides if you're at war? Again, to that, it's most of what I've said before, so I will not repeat it once more painstakingly. But the loss of life shows that we're at war. The loss of destruction of schools which people went to, the loss of playgrounds people grew up in, the loss of parents, family members, pets. That is what shows you're at war, and that happens on both sides.
Well, you see, with the war, some wars are unreported and are not really seen as war by the world. What about that?
What about that? That's something for us to improve on, but by no means should we say, oh, this is bad, let's regress on this thing too. I don't see why we would do that, or the productive nature of why we would, again, regress, because that's what this glorification of propaganda comes off to our side, which is that we're glorifying what we already deem as wrong because of how we already treat misinformation and the spreading of false narratives. Another thing I would like to quickly touch on is the impact that propaganda has. The harm that propaganda has is crazy, and we said, oh, how does it impact future generations? Well, it's not just future generations which it will impact. First of all, let's take the very recent example of COVID. I don't know if you guys saw in the news, there was lots of instances of anti-Asian hate crimes because of this strange thought in people's mind that, oh, you're Asian, COVID. These are the very real, again, the effects of propaganda are tangible and you can see them, whether it be some innocent lady who is Asian getting attacked, or let's say someone, I can't come up with another example, I'll be honest, but we don't want the random lady just getting attacked because of her ethnicity. These are the real tangible impacts of that. While we're on the topic of COVID, well, there was a lot of misinformation on COVID that I think you will be on the same page with me when I say that cost lives. The misinformation during the COVID pandemic, that had blood. There was very tangible proof. And one other thing I would like to say, as you said, that for the future generations, we're not concerned with the future generations. Well, we very much should be, because what we leave behind is what my kids, your grandkids, the future generation will go off of. The kid right there, he will go off of what we're doing now. We need to take that into account, and we need to make sure we're having members of society who are better than us, more empathetic than us, more caring than us, more kind, more rational than us, and this is all of key importance. And with that, I would like to say thank you.
For the second speaker. So now, wait. Okay, so now we have the government whip, and the government whip is Professor Mark Conner, who's going to be taking the floor for 7.5 minutes. Smaller than the lecture time, but more energetic this time, and more persuasive. So you have to say start to your father, okay? You get the chance this time, not every time.
Stop. Yeah, he's more likely to say stop. Okay, thank you very much for asking me, I think. This is pretty scary. This is more scary than anything in the Große Aula. Even when none of the computers are working. It's a scary motion because here we are, the teachers, and we're kind of put in a position where it seems we're in favor of propaganda. You know, the teachers, they think propaganda's wonderful. Well, that's the sort of thing you get from them anyway. The reason we support this motion is because we think it's very difficult often to say what is propaganda and what is not. What is propaganda and what is teaching? I mean, I happen to like the economics of John Maynard Keynes, and I admit this in my lectures. But I know that there are a number of places where I could be trying to teach economics where people would say, he thinks Keynes was right. Even in some of what he said, he thinks Keynes is right. And you know, this is just pure propaganda. It's a load of probably left-wing twaddle, at least anyway, Keynesian twaddle. And you see, it's very hard to define. And that is why we're even prepared to say unlimited use of propaganda, because we know that no authority can be trusted that can tell us what is propaganda and what is not. One of the things I've had to endure as someone who's English, and it wasn't exactly a war, but it felt like it at times, was the great Brexit debate, which went on and on and on. Someone said it'll go on not only until everything has been said about it that can be said, but until everyone has said everything that can be said about it. But I mean, it's quite difficult, even when you look back at all those arguments. You look back at Mr. Farage and you say, well, he went round with a big red bus. In a big red bus, and on the side of the big red bus was, we send the EU £186,000 every week. Why don't we spend that on the health service? Now actually what he said on the side of his big red bus was quite right. We did send the EU £186,000 per week. What he didn't say on his big red bus was that the EU sent us a lot of money for horizon science, for our farmers, common agricultural policy, diddly-diddly-do. So it was a partial truth. A truth but a partial truth. Now, you know, this illustrates, I think, it's quite difficult to draw a line between propaganda and fact. And therefore, the only way you can really go about this is to let anything go, but hopefully to have some decent authorities, like the BBC's reality check, for instance, that can comment on what's been said. Dehumanize the enemy. Now that sounds very nasty. Hello.
So the thing that you said about Nigel Farage is really propaganda. I have to agree with that. But the motion is really concerning about the way propaganda is dehumanizing people. And given the arguments that you have presented, would you be in favor of Nigel Farage arguments against immigrants, for example?
No, I'm not in favor of his arguments at all. The question is, should he be allowed to make them? And there, I think I have to say yes. I mean, even the Brexit debate, which wasn't strictly, obviously, wartime, there was a woman MP, Jo Cox. She was murdered. Her sister is now an MP. To be fair, recently, a Conservative MP has been murdered. MPs in the UK, and of course in other countries, do get murdered. And part of the reason why they get murdered is certainly the way people debate and the way that propaganda is spread. But I'm afraid that that is the price we have to pay for free speech. And it can be a very extreme price to pay, but I don't know what else. Dehumanize, that could be a bit tricky. I was very conscious of that. I was told there was no personal comments, and I think that's quite right. But during that Brexit debate, You know, when you saw Boris Johnson's hair, that yellow hair, I mean, I know the other side is the furthest from yellow hair one can imagine. It's not too much of a personal comment. They've been commenting about our pepper and salt hair, so maybe it's allowed. But I mean, you know, there were comments that he looked rather as if he's just had some kind of, he's just been sort of electrocuted. I'm not sure. I think that really the only alternative to free speech is some kind of body that shouldn't be making decisions about what you can say, which is claiming the right to. And it's because I'm nervous about that I come down on the side of the government in this matter. I rest the case.
He was the star of the show. Okay, so next upon we have the opposition whip and Shana is going to be on the floor for 7.5 minutes. So you are on the clock starting from now.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. I must say I never expected to go up against the professor of philosophy himself. I mean, it's kind of his thing to debate, but I'm going to give it my best. So first of all, I'd like to address what we mean when we say propaganda. You previously mentioned that propaganda, you cannot decide what is propaganda and what is not. However, propaganda by definition is spreading lies. So it is not subjective as you were saying, it is in fact spreading lies. However, when we were saying that the government side supports the use of propaganda, wartime propaganda, to dehumanize the enemy, the word enemy is subjective in fact. When we're talking about every conflict happening around the world, there are always two sides. And you cannot decide who the enemy is. In your eyes, a certain side is the enemy. But in the other side's eyes, you are the enemy. So this is completely subjective. You cannot decide that, yeah, this is true. The propaganda is facts, as you mentioned, that the propaganda can actually be facts. Propaganda is backed by facts. When you can decide that propaganda is about spreading lies, and these lies are backed by facts. However, not both sides are going to have the power to project their side of the story. When you're talking about the biggest conflicts in the world, I'm not going to get too into detail, but let's talk about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. You're talking about the side that is extremely powerful, that is backed by the US and many countries, and they have hold of the media. They can express their propaganda. So it's not always true that both sides, as you said, it's freedom of speech, that both sides spread their propaganda. Sometimes only one side can spread their propaganda, and in that case, it's going to be biased. That's the first argument I have to make. Another thing I want to say is, even if you are certain for sure that what you're doing is right, the propaganda is actually right because they're the enemy and they deserve that, you cannot generalize the entire population, as my teammates have previously mentioned. And sometimes this generalization also occurs to the side that is spreading the propaganda. So for example, when we're talking about a certain country in war that's spreading propaganda, they can also be going against their own citizens, not only the citizens they're affecting, like not only the other side. So you can never generalize that the whole population deserves to be dehumanized like that, especially when we're talking about cases where this propaganda and this generalization is going to have an effect for many, many years. Let's take, for example, Islamophobia, and how we have this huge propaganda held by the West on how all Muslims are terrorists. This hugely affects the Muslim people throughout every generation. Is going to forever affect their lives. And I want to comment something else about, you're saying that propaganda is just freedom of speech. However, we have a saying in Arabic that goes, you can express your freedom until your freedom is trespassing another person's freedom. So in certain cases, you do not actually have freedom, as you guys are saying, when you're actually dehumanizing other people. In that case, One more thing I want to mention is that when we're talking about how the media could be a solution to prevent propaganda from happening, as you guys said, we have free journalism, free media. So yeah, the media could be a tool to prevent propaganda from happening and could help both sides share their story. However, even the media and even journalists are controlled by propaganda. Not all media is always telling the truth. And even journalists are sometimes dehumanized. Let's take Khashoggi. He was killed for being a journalist. So you can never ensure that there's freedom of speech, freedom of media, freedom of journalism. So
yeah, propaganda is always going to be biased. And another thing I want to mention about freedom of speech is that, okay, let's say a certain person has the freedom to say something. Some person could scream, oh, there's a fire, when there could not be a fire. So freedom of speech is not actually the way to describe propaganda here, because when we're talking about propaganda, propaganda is by definition the spreading of lies. And when you have one side spreading certain lies and the other side extremely vulnerable to debunk these lies, you're just serving, this side is serving their own agenda. You're not having an equal side here. And yeah, that's basically everything I want to say. I'm welcome for any POIs. Okay,
POIs. That was a quick speech, and that was fun. So, last 10 minutes into the debate. Now the time for every speaker is going to be 5 minutes, and it's going to be a reply speech. No new arguments can be brought up, just a reminder. And there are going to be no POIs. There have been very few, but some good ones, so there are no chance to have more POIs. And let's set the timer. So now the fourth speaker, the reply speaker from the government side is Ma'am Krista Van Winkle, and she's going to be having the floor for 5 minutes. Just give it up for her. So when you're ready, can I start the timer? Should I start it? Okay, so she's ready.
Okay, good evening everyone. I can't say I'm really happy to be here. To be honest, I'm scared shit, but anyway, it's the first time I have to do this, so bear with me if I don't take all the precautions in mind. What we're trying to say, basically, of course, we're not in favor of dehumanization. It would be stupid to say that we are. But indeed, the alternative is that you give up a lot of your freedom. Because, I mean, who is gonna decide what is dehumanization? Who is going to decide what is propaganda? When is something a lie? And when is something the half-truth or the truth? Because in every discussion, you always have each side thinks that what they're saying is the truth. And who is then gonna say that it's not? So it is a bit difficult to say, okay, propaganda is a bad thing or it's a good thing. It's used in all times. It has been used all the time. So it's not something that is new, and it will be done over time, and it will be done in the future also. It is just that by being educated, that we can hope that you see the difference between what is propaganda and what is good for the people who are there at that time. So we just hope that you're intelligent enough to make that decision and to basically see the difference between certain arguments and certain things, certain opinions that are being formulated by governments or by the university even, by me when I say that you have to study and you should really study. You also, I mean, in a democracy normally, you have free press. And you can say, yeah, free press, what's that all about? But believe me, when you live in a society where there's no free press, you would really want free press to have it and to be able to share your opinions and to say whatever you needed to say. And that people would be able to listen. So I think you shouldn't just say, yeah, free press is just something stupid or something small. No, it's not. It's really something extremely valuable. At the moment, you have lots of social media. There's so much bullshit going on social media. That is true. mean, if I see what all of you are looking at sometimes when I enter in a classroom, I mean, it's amazing. And it has nothing to do with your studies at that time. But, I mean, with the social media, there are things that can be useful also. So, I don't say social media is bad, but just know when whatever is on social media, that you realize that a lot of it is crap. And some things will be good on there, and you can use it in a way that is useful, but you should also know that there are lots of things on there that, oh my God, I mean, believe me, they're so stupid. It's really, sometimes you say, man, what are you looking at? You also have courts. You have courts everywhere in the world, and hopefully the courts are where the laws are, where there is a way of being judged by someone who is indeed someone who is not from one or the other side, but who is really just looking at the facts and then stating whatever arguments they have, and then say, okay, this is the way it's going to be. So, hopefully, we're just thinking, well, who is going to regulate everything that you want to do then? When do you say, where do you put a limit on what is allowed and what is not allowed? It's very hard to draw the line somewhere, and who's going to draw the line and who's going to say, there it stops, or there it is to continue. I mean, some things you might not agree with what people say or what they put online, but at least they are able to do it. So, it's not a bad thing that you're able to do it. The only thing that you can do is hopefully be intelligent enough to know what is right and what is not right. So, I hope that by this, I don't think we should open this Pandora box. It's too difficult to open it, and as we know from the Greeks, it was not a success when they did it. So, thank you.
We have the last speaker who is going to be on the clock for the next 5 minutes. Her 5 minutes are protected. There are going to be no POIs as the previous speaker. She is the opposition reply speaker, Aurora. So give it up for Aurora once again. Are you ready? I'm going to put you on the clock now.
Okay, so it is my duty to wrap up this debate, and I will try to highlight the main points which are the most important to define what is right in the end. But I think we can all agree that it is a scary motion. Both sides have been able to show that there are many subtleties in it. However, there are three main points that we would like to resume here, which is the propaganda, the concept of something being limited or unlimited, and can we test it? So there is a contradiction that has been made, and which I think makes our point stronger. It is that the opposing team assumes that the truth will come out because of social media. They assume the truth will come out. Yet they also said that it is hard to identify propaganda. However, if people are able to acknowledge it, if people are able to control it, it brings us to the next point, limitation or unlimitation. If we are able to acknowledge it, we are able to say that there is a limit, that there is a red line that has been crossed. We might not agree on where it is exactly, however it exists. Because if it wouldn't exist, we wouldn't be here having this debate because we wouldn't be aware of it. And then, is it tangible? Can we test it? Is it something hypothetical? We have given many examples which prove that this is all very tangible. Look at history. You can come up with your own examples just like we did. So, here in this debate, I think the most important part was that we were able to show both sides the many subtleties. However, is it tangible? We have proven that yes, it is. That yes, there is a limit, and that propaganda is biased and morally wrong. Thank you very much for your attention.
Now the debate has come to an end, so we have two things which are going to happen right now. First is that the judges are going to give insight and give a feedback, and that feedback is not going to be directed to the professors. There's going to be a shake of hand as well, because now we're in code yellow, if the professors don't mind, between sides, so that we end at a happy note. And when they go back to class tomorrow, they still know that they're the professors. They can't say anything, and they can't take anything forward from this debate. Just have a gentle shake of hand, or maybe a fist bump, if not a shake of hand. And at the end, for you people, you guys can have Q&As, because I saw a few of you writing notes or maybe making some drawings around, so you guys can have some Q&As. This is a memorable moment. Yeah, just a picture as well. So the motion is back on the back as well. A good debate. That one is nice. That's nice. Nice one, huh, Roche? Something for the professors as well. Professor Mark. Professor Emmett, something for him. Okay, so if you judges are going to go, so you guys can ask questions within the debate, maybe about your courses. Maybe they're in the mood to give you an extra point or stuff like that. You can use the restroom if you want to. You can go have something to drink. You can ask your questions to the professors, to the students. You can network around with the professors. You can know them better, maybe. That can help you with your recommendations and something like that. And you can say thank you to them at the end as well. The debate is not over yet. We still have the results coming in for 5 minutes. So if you guys want to cheer up your students or your professors, you can still wait for 5 minutes. Tell them not to leave. It's not over! We're just deciding on the winner. That wasn't a good way. I just had to get everyone's attention. But yes, you can use the restroom, but be back in around 5 to 10 minutes to see who the winner is and, celebrate. Maybe you can get a surprise at the end. Maybe.
up and possibly seeing themselves debate in the future, or just get better at debating, or just exercise your thinking skills, here's the QR code. We can love. Yeah, we're gonna have trips, we're gonna have debating events, just so much stuff. So much out of joining our debate club. To all of you interested, scan this QR code with your camera app, fill in the form, and you're gonna get a board member.
No, not yet. Next time.
It's €5, by the way. What you get out of it is worth more than 5. The painting is worth €500, so €5 is cheap. No, joke. Just trying to cheer people up while we wait. The opportunity cost. I mean, first of all, this weekend, we're spots open, but we're going on a trip, which we are paying for everyone's accommodation. So we're paying for the hotel. To those that pay €5. There is no swimming pool. There's something better than swimming pool. There's friendship. Friendship. Maybe you join and no swimming pool, but we're going to a beach soon. So for €5 you can go to the beach. Like Nicki Minaj. Let's go to the beach, eat, and get away. Work at the beach. Okay. So I live by the beach. I'm still going there. You do you, but everyone should still join the debate club, no matter whether beach versus pools. Let's see a run. Raise your hand if you like beaches over pools. And if you like the pool, swimming pools over going to the beach, raise your hand. Very disappointing. So you guys like none? What do you guys like? Hold on. Ross, are you? Cheese! Woo! Give it up for our stars! I just want to say personally, all 8 of you were just amazing, and it was like the best debate ever. Just a round of applause for all 8 of them. 4 students, 4 professors. The best of the bunch. No? Wow. Okay, guys, get in your seats. We are about to announce the winner. Everyone sit down. This is the moment we've been waiting for. Can I ask like a show of hands what the people thought, students versus professors?
Can you guys have a seat for a moment, please? Just a moment. Yeah. Everybody back to their places, the debaters. Just for the moment, once the result is announced, we have something to give to the professors as well. So please just sit down for a moment. You waited so long, you've been with us for the past 2.5 hours. So just join us for a bit longer and then we leave together.
Everyone, please take a seat. We're going to announce the verdict. So I just want to thank you all before again. Thank you for attending the event and sticking through with us for the entirety of it. And thank you to the participants as well for bravely going for debate. We really appreciate it. And after discussing with the judges, it was a difficult decision. We had a lot of arguments for this side or that side, but we came to a unanimous decision that the government team or the professors team has taken the debate today. If there's any questions about feedback or why or reasoning, we don't want to take too much of your time, so we can always discuss that with you privately. But first, we want to hand out some gifts to the attendees and to the participants for being so generous to join us in the debate. Yes, we're also, if you want to sign up for Debate Club or attend any more of our events, please scan the QR code. If the professors are allowing some Q&A still, then we will open it up for Q&A for a couple of minutes. But if they need to get going, then.
If you have a question to the professors, you can always ask, as I've said. Oh, we have one.
We have one question here. Okay, please.
I'm sorry. I have a question for the teachers. I was wondering, because you all support propaganda, but I think that you did actually agree with the students that propaganda is something bad, but I heard you all talk, your arguments were mostly saying that it's inevitable, that you can't stop the spreading of lies because this is just how social media works. But do you actually support it, or do you just accept it? And if you do support it, then And if you do support it, then how is it good to our country? How does propaganda benefits us if you do support it? Because I only heard you talk about how you can stop the spreading of lies.
I'll let them answer that question. Please keep in mind the professors are only playing a role here on the side. They do not actually support either or.
Yes, of course.
Yes,
Just
from their line of argumentation, maybe then.
Yeah, of course, the thing was, we were confronted with this statement 50 minutes before we had to debate it, being told, you're in favor. It's like, okay. We were told there would be a warning at the beginning of the debate saying that the statements taken were not personal. I didn't hear that, did you?
It was made.
Okay, it was made. Okay, then I did not listening badly. Of course, I'm not in favor of propaganda, but I think it's a fact of life. And rather than, and I agree with our position there, rather than really trying to regulate it, because this will open a whole box of Pandora's box as well that we have heard. Rather than trying to regulate it and all these questions about who does what and who is respected, and it's better to educate the population, I think, to detect the problem is, as I always tell my students, I always say students are people are lazy, so students are lazy. The same thing goes for people. I think if you look at the situation in the States right now, the United States, this country is being split apart into two groups which are each in their own bubble, and they all believe their propaganda, their own bubble. You have Fox News, you have CNN, and the two live in different worlds. And I think it's better to educate people to detect propaganda, knowing that it will always be a fact of life. So I agree with that standpoint. Of course, I'm against propaganda as such. I'm against dehumanizing. I'm against war. But we were told to be in favor of this specific motion.
They were just playing their role and playing it very well.
Any question? Anything to debate?
It seems we have one more question over here, and then I think we're going to wrap it up if nobody else has.
You've already made a decision. Okay. Still a question.
Yes, I just wanted to hear the answer to the previous question, and now we can answer mine, because you do say that propaganda is a fact of life and that you're scared of the way it would be controlled otherwise, but there are already certain limits being placed on free speech, and there are very specific examples of that. For example, in Belgium, sexist speech isn't allowed anymore, so it is happening, and we accept it, and we accept it as progress as well, so why wouldn't we be able to do it in propaganda as well?
I think the major issue is, with respect to these laws, you have specific types of message, for instance, anti-Semitic, gender discrimination, and actually it's calling to discriminate, right? But an overall blanket law against propaganda. Look, I trust my government today, but I don't trust the government within a decade. Why? Because I don't know who that government will be. So offering too much of a blank check to a future government whom I don't know, I think that's very dangerous. That's why I feel it's like Eric said, it's important that you educate people. And that's also where your responsibility will come. I mean, you're trained, right? Your university trains students. If any person is capable of detecting lies, half-truths, spurious correlation, I mean, Eric shows you what correlation is, right? No, you don't. Yeah, you should. I mean, statistics. I mean, if any one of, I mean, you're university trained students, right? You're one of the best trained people on this planet. Well, it's your responsibility. Right? We offer you the tools, and it's your responsibility to detect lies. And it's very difficult to detect half-truths, like my colleague Mark said. On the bus, it was true what was on the bus. Right? It was a fact. The question was, okay, but the other side of the coin was not mentioned. The other side of the bus didn't say, but look, we get X thousand a month from the EU's budget as well. But it was not a lie. So, and that's the problem. When do you have a lie? Is a half-truth a lie? So, and that is your responsibility ultimately to detect those types of tricks. Because you have a whole bunch of tricks that you can use, right? It's called, I mean, look at a lot of graphs that you see in the newspaper. I mean, they are propaganda. They are not meant to inform, they are meant to influence. These are called infograms, right? They are meant to influence, and it's your responsibility to detect and then to spread the idea, right? So basically this motion affects you. And rather than prohibiting propaganda, whatever propaganda is, I'd rather train you to detect and to be able to spread and take your responsibility as very well-trained people on this planet than to give some future governments, whom I won't elect because I may be dead, right? To give some future government the authority to determine what propaganda is. Because that will switch the other side of the coin as well, right? Assume that people in 1995 had given the authority to the Russian president to determine what propaganda is. Because they feared propaganda in 1992 or 1993. What would be the end result? I think you would have propaganda. Right? And that's a bit of a problem. So I'm not as scared of my government today. I think we have freedom of speech, we have whatever. But I'm afraid of my government, whom I won't elect because I'm dead in 100 years' time, does with the rights I thought were good rights today. And basically that's about compatibility, dynamic compatibility, right? You can do that game theoretically if you will. Right? And that's what I'm afraid of. What do you give a future government who is not necessarily interested in staying a democratically elected government?
Okay. Another question? Okay, go ahead.
Hello. Well, what I see the opposition to say is that it is possible for the truth to come out, and that by leaving the dissemination of information to social media, etc., they can be written by interests, right? But and then what I see the forward team is saying is that would entail having an actor that is uninfluenceable and kind of infallible to decide what is and what is not the truth. I'm just interested in how the opposition would, can you illustrate how this can be done? How can there be this actor that could police, also detect lies and prevent them from being disseminated? Basically, how would you govern free speech, basically?
Thank you for your question. That will be the last question or the last answer.
So it's basically how would you govern free speech?
May I first ask if you may rephrase the question once again, because I got lost there? Regulate free speech. Okay.
How do you regulate free speech in a way that the person regulating is not going to be influenced? Because you said that the people who are disseminating information can be influenced, right? But how do you? Because I think
Because I think one of your critiques for free speech is that the people disseminating information, i.e. media, etc., could be written, influenced by one of the two clubs in the debate, right? But what I would like to ask is how can you illustrate how the person or the actor guaranteeing that the information spread is true, how this actor can be free from influence and can accurately determine the truth? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. I personally think there is no actual way we can prevent any person from not being influenced by a certain ideology, and that's the thing I agree with the government side, which is propaganda is inevitable. But our motion here is not about whether it's inevitable or whether it's not, whether it's present in our world or not. It's about whether we should support it or not. So I think in all situations, you're always going to have every party being influenced by a certain agenda, and each side is always going to want to influence their own propaganda and try to influence the entire world to be on their side. So I don't think you can actually create structured way to prevent such things from happening. Propaganda is inevitable. However, our point is we do not support it.
That's a very difficult question to answer, but I'll try to do good. amount of time that I have. But, so you were asking about how we can damage free speech and whether or not it's possible. And it's very difficult to answer that because it relates to, I think, one of the oldest questions in the philosophical world, which is that who watches the Watchmen? You know, like, I don't think we can ever answer that question. It's like asking which one comes first, the egg or the chicken? You know, and but there was this interesting article that I read about Karl Popper's proposition that in order for you to defend free speech, you need to limit free speech. And what type of free speech is limited by Karl Popper, or what he meant was the kind of speech that involves an element of incitement. So, for example, in the context of Germany, since it has like historical background of anti-Semitic problems, it would be reasonable to limit speeches that are anti-Semitic. So yeah, that's what I answer to that.
So that was the last question we had.
Here's by the way a very big theory on what came first. It's subjective. When you wake up in the morning, the thing you eat first, that came first. So just keep that in mind. And thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to close up the debate event here. Thank you so much for attending, for supporting everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening ahead. Thank you so much for joining in. We'll be having some more fun activities, some social team building activities as well. So do get updated on our social media and sign up and become a member.